Rat torture is a gruesome method of inflicting pain and psychological terror using rats, often leveraged as a means of extracting information or punishing individuals. The concept revolves around the utilization of these rodents, either by trapping them on a person's body and provoking them to gnaw through flesh to escape, or by creating a confined space where the victim is left helpless as rats feed on them. Historically, rat torture has been documented in various cultures, notably during periods of extreme oppression and authoritarian regimes. Its significance in understanding human cruelty and the depths of fear it can evoke is noteworthy, illustrating the lengths some individuals and groups will go to instill terror. The historical context of rat torture highlights its use as a tool for intimidation and control throughout history. During the Dutch Revolt against Spain in the 16th century, it was documented as a method for interrogating prisoners. Similarly, in the 20th century, such practices were reported in South American dictatorships and in secretive government operations across the globe. Understanding these historical occurrences sheds light on the dark capacities of regimes to dehumanize and manipulate their victims. There are also contemporary parallels. While not as widespread today, the symbolic dread associated with rat torture appears in modern media and cultural references, maintaining its chilling effect as a metaphor for fear and corruption. It also surfaces within fictional narratives, such as George Orwell's 1984, where rats represent both a personal phobia and a broader allegory of oppressive power. Supporters of exploring this topic argue that understanding the psychological implications of such inhumane practices is crucial for comprehending the full scope of human rights violations. However, controversy arises from the depiction of such horrors, as some criticize the potential for sensationalism or desensitization to real suffering. An alternative viewpoint questions the need for detailed exploration of such macabre methods, positing that focusing on these brutal historical practices may overshadow current, more subtle forms of psychological torture and injustice. However, rat torture undoubtedly ties into the broader narrative of fear as a method of control, linking directly to discussions about power dynamics and the ethical limits of coercion. In delving into rat torture, one inevitably confronts broader themes of fear, power, and the human condition, creating a backdrop for examining the moral complexities and potential for cruelty within society. Rat torture, a macabre and grim practice, involves using rats as instruments of harm or fear against humans. This concept can be traced back to various historical and cultural contexts where rats were strategically utilized to inflict psychological torment or physical pain. Typically contained in a confined space against a victim's body, these creatures are provoked to chew through flesh, underpinning their innate survival instincts. Historically, this method of torture was employed as a means of interrogation, coercion, or punishment. Capitalizing on the universal fear and disgust many harbor towards rats, the significance of exploring the origins and cultural resonance of rat torture lies in its power as a testament to human cruelty and the psychological manipulation inherent in torture practices. It underscores a narrative about how fear is manipulated, from exploiting primal fears to employing these creatures as unintended tools of terror. Understanding this not only allows us to reflect on past inhumanities, but also enables discourse on the nature of fear and authority. One prominent example of rat torture is its alleged use during the military dictatorship in Argentina in the late 20th century, where it was employed as a tactic to break the will of political prisoners. In fiction, rat torture gained notoriety through George Orwell's 1984, where the protagonist is threatened with a cage of hungry rats to his face, symbolizing his ultimate fear and the oppressive power of the state. Opinions regarding the cultural impact of rat torture emphasize its psychological layer. It's not just about physical suffering, but a deeper mental subjugation. Critics argue that such torture epitomizes the darkest facets of humanity, revealing depths of human cruelty rooted in creating inexplicable fear. However, using animals in torture is highly controversial. Animal rights advocates vehemently oppose such practices, arguing it not only exemplifies human cruelty towards humans, but also towards innocent creatures deployed without ethical regard. Additionally, its practical application poses ethical dilemmas, challenging our moral and humane boundaries. Connecting this to broader aspects of torture, rat torture exemplifies how non-human agents are harnessed to evoke poignant fear, contributing to discussions about psychological warfare and coercive techniques worldwide. It influences our understanding of fear management, showcasing how something small and perceived as insignificant can be manipulated to wield enormous psychological power. By recognizing rat torture's origins and cultural significance, society confronts its own capacity for cruelty while challenging the rationalization of fear and control mechanisms across cultures. The heading, Mechanisms and Methods Used in Rat Torture, dives into the distressing practice where rats are employed as instruments of torture, exploiting their natural behavior and characteristics to instill extreme fear and pain in victims. Rat torture exemplifies a heinous form of psychological and physical torment, where the tormentor makes use of rats' tendency to gnaw and burrow as they seek escape, often targeting soft tissues of the restrained victim. This method, notable for its sheer brutality, exemplifies the depths of human ingenuity turned to dark purposes. The significance of this point lies in its relevance to understanding historical and psychological aspects of torture, underlining how fear is a potent tool when combined with a creature as common as the rat. Throughout history, rat torture has been used as a method to extract confessions, punish dissenters, or simply as a means of instilling terror within populations. Understanding the mechanisms highlights both the human capacity for cruelty and the psychological impact on victims who face the primal fear of being consumed alive. A historically documented example of rat torture was reported during Argentina's Dirty War, where the military used rats in torture sessions against political dissidents, demonstrating how this method was utilized as a means of social and political control. Another case is the medieval practice in Europe, where rats were trapped in a container placed against a victim's body. Heat was then applied to the container's exterior, prompting the rats to burrow into the body as they sought to escape, vividly manifesting the horror of this technique. Some psychological perspectives suggest that the fear induced by such barbaric methods surpasses physical pain, leaving enduring psychological scars. However, the approach also faces intense controversy and moral opposition, as it starkly contradicts modern humanitarian principles and global human rights policies. Critics argue that such practices highlight a regrettable facet of human history where cruelty was normalized under the guise of justice or control. While spectacular in its cruelty, rat torture exemplifies the broader themes of how fear-based control has been a recurring motif across cultures and epochs. It underscores the impact of psychological warfare, shaping both individual and collective mindsets. The conversation around this practice also engages ongoing discussions about the limits of suffering, the ethical obligations towards humane treatment, and the drive to learn from past atrocities to inform a more compassionate future. Engaging with these methods enables a deeper understanding of the lengths to which humans might go to assert dominance and the universal imperative to remember and reject such excesses. Psychological and physical effects on victims delves into the profound impact that rat torture can have on individuals subjected to such horrific treatment. Rat torture is an insidious form of cruelty where victims are exposed to live rats, either as a psychological threat or as a direct physical attack, leading to severe trauma. The psychological effects can manifest as intense fear, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and a pervasive sense of helplessness. Physically, the victims might suffer bites, infections, and long-lasting health consequences, as the conditions in which such torture typically occurs are unsanitary and dangerous. Understanding the psychological and physical effects on victims is crucial because it highlights the depth of rat torture's cruelty and underscores the necessity of addressing and preventing such human rights violations. The impact on victims extends beyond the immediate pain and fear, often resulting in long-term psychological scars that can persist for years. This aspect of the topic reveals the broader implications of inhumane treatment and its capacity to destroy lives, making it a critical point of discussion in advocating for stronger human rights protections. In terms of real-world applications, one example can be drawn from historical accounts of the use of rat torture by oppressive regimes as a method of instilling fear and controlling dissent. Such accounts provide a grim reminder of the lengths to which those in power may go to maintain control. Another example is the portrayal of rat torture in literature and media, often used to symbolize the depths of human cruelty and the psychological terror it embodies, thus raising awareness and empathy for the victims. Support for addressing the psychological and physical effects on victims often comes from human rights organizations and advocates, who argue that such torture is a gross violation of human dignity and emphasizes the importance of international intervention. However, challenges exist, such as the difficulty in documenting cases due to the secretive nature of the acts and the potential reluctance of victims to come forward due to stigma or fear of retribution. This point connects to broader discussions about torture and ethical treatment across various contexts, including warfare and prison systems. It highlights the need for comprehensive strategies to protect individuals and ensure accountability for perpetrators. By examining these effects, one gains a fuller understanding of the broader issue of torture and its devastating impact on human life.